But also as our company is growing, we want to ensure that that everybody that's coming in is also very clear on, what our standards are. I think everybody can agree, that industry wide, especially those of us that have been in the business a long time, that the industry has really changed, and professionalism has really been sort of diluted over the years for whatever reason. I think a lot of it has to do with, just our like popular culture. I think our industry is sort of, on the outside looking in, it looks like it's very easy and very glamorous and very, and it's, what we do is really difficult. Having high professional standards is important. I say this all the time, and a lot of you have heard me say this next statement, that we help clients with the most expensive thing that they may buy or sell in their lifetime. So just think of how supremely important our job is, right? And it's not something that we should take lightly. Think about how much a family or a couple might do in years preparing for them, up to, in the years that lead up to them buying a house. They might be working on their credit for years, saving up money. It's such a huge it's such a huge step for someone in their life. It's such a huge milestone. And I think sometimes we take for granted what we're doing, and we take for granted just how important a home purchase or a real estate transaction is for someone. In case of investment or commercial property, they might be, they might have saved up a lifetime of, working to save up for, this investment property. Again, all of this to say that what we're doing is so important, and it carries with it such a tremendous responsibility. And we have to be really, really mindful of it. And for whatever reason, it just seems like in the last several years, the industry has become very sort of lax as it applies to, professionalism, right? We're living in a very sort of relaxed environment. Especially now after COVID, the lines are very blurred between home and work, right? And we cannot ever forget, some things never change. The importance of purchasing real estate was important yesterday, and it's important today, and so will be important tomorrow. So again, all of that to say, this is why we're having this class. I want agents to really just understand how important our job is, and to never ever forget that, right? And as busy as we get, as much as we're trying to make money in this industry, we can never lose sight of that, right? And before I continue further, because I've had a lot of people ask me what the reason was that I wanted to have this class, and what has happened in our office and who's responsible for the class, and the answer is really, first of all, I'll say that our offices, all of them, we have a really good,
Norma,
high quality group of professionals.
Norma, real quick, the agents in our office can't hear you. They want to know if you can turn up the volume.
Oh, I'll try to speak a little bit louder. Does that help?
Thank you.
All
I
right.
guess they texted me, so.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll try to speak a little bit louder. So yeah, again, I've been asked why, from several agents, why we're having this class. We'd never really had sort of a mandatory professional standards class. And again, I'll say that most of the agents in our office, all of our offices, we have a really good group of professionals. I'm really, really proud, because I think that, again, professionalism is something that's become so diluted, and we have a really, just good group of agents. And another reason why, I want to have this class is because I want to continue to ensure that. I told somebody last week that I interviewed that I don't think we're the office that attracts these sort of very unethical agents. They don't come to our office because they realize the amount of compliance that we have and the amount of oversight that we have. And so I just always want to ensure that, right, that we always continue to operate from just a place of just really high professionalism, right? I want to reiterate our company values. let me move this around here, bear with me. Our company core values are found in our policy and procedures, and most of our offices have them up on a wall somewhere. So the guiding principles and the foundation of our policies, our day-to-day decision making, and our ultimate long-term and agent-centered vision are professionalism, service, respect, and a commitment to growth and mastery. So you can think of professional standards as sort of our core values, and they are for us in the professional world what maybe your sort of religious moral compass, might be for you in your personal life, right? We all have that in our personal life. Um, these are the sort of the gauge or the filter, if you will, by which you measure everything, right? Every decision. So in business, it's the same thing, right? The difference is that in business, there's really no question about it, right? It's a little bit more black and white. There's no gray area. And as it applies to working for our company, there really is no choice in whether or not you follow these principles and these standards. Okay, it really is. If you want to belong to our company and be a part of our company, I feel really strongly about these things because again, I never forget just how important having high professional standards is, right? So again, the goal with the class today is just again, the having high professional standards really is for our benefit ultimately, right? It is so that our success in this business can be ensured. Um, but it's also that we ensure, a successful transaction for our customers, right? Having high professional standards will never fail us. It will always help us, right? And it will always ensure both of these two things, right? It'll ensure a successful transaction for us and a positive, happy, real estate purchase or sale for our clients. So we have to approach this. We have to keep this in mind. We have to approach it from a very proactive way. Very mindful, very purposeful. Everything we do, right, from initial, we get our phone rings, from A to Z. We have to really approach this business with these very high standards in mind, right, to ensure a successful transaction. So some of the things that we're going to talk about, some of the most common issues that I see just from sort of customer complaints. This year we've had more truck complaints than ever before, or I should say in the last 12 months, in the last year and a half. We've been involved in several lawsuits. Everything has really turned out favorable for us. We live in a really sort of lawsuit happy environment. It's why E&O insurances for us are so expensive. Anytime a customer doesn't get their way or something, just doesn't pan out for them, or they're upset about something, nobody, you know, everybody knows that they have a brother, a cousin, or that's a lawyer, and it's the first thing they throw out, right? That they're gonna sue us, right? So I've seen it so much in the last year and a half. A lot of these are very just sort of the same type of recurring issues. And some of these things are just really small things that you guys, you might just not really think about. And so we want to just talk about them today so that we can avoid them, right? And again, in the end, just have a successful transaction. So let's talk about sorry. So let's talk about professional standards. So there are a set of principles, behaviors, expectations, ethics by which a group of professionals are guided by and adhere to, right? So let's talk about some of these more common, and again, some of these things are things that we have seen in our office. And a lot of these things, I'm going to touch on things that are things that I just see sort of industry-wide. that I would hate to see at our office, and so I'm going to bring them up just so that we can avoid them. So none of these things that I'm going to talk about are intended to offend anyone or bring any offense to anyone. You know, keep in mind that I'm just thinking of the larger picture of our office. Um, I'm certainly not singling anyone out. And I would hope that everybody's, you know, open-minded about some of these things that we're going to talk about, again, because it is for your own benefit, right? For your own success. So we'll get into some of these. And one of the first things that, or I would say one of the biggest things, and it happens in our office so often, is that we don't have everything in writing. And I'm not just talking about an offer that can be communicated, you know, you calling an agent and saying, hey, will your client take this offer? That's absolutely never okay. But there's a lot of other things that should be in writing. And I'm not saying to be extreme about this with your clients and never pick up the phone and talk to them and do everything via text. But we do have to recognize that there comes a point in the transaction that it's smart to just begin to document everything in writing. And that point in a transaction is when you begin to receive offers, certainly when you have multiple offers, when the negotiation is going back and forth, and you can tell a customer um, this, you know, ahead of time. In your conversations with them, your scheduling showings, or whatever the case may be, you can tell them at some point, I will probably prefer to text or email, just because for my records, I would rather have everything in writing, right? Um, and so just think of any change that you do on a contract. It's probably easier done on an amendment or a or a detailed email as opposed to just a text message. So just keep in mind that there comes a point in a transaction where you better serve your client if you just begin to document everything, preferably in an email. A text message is fine, but that's really, really important, right? That would just help us avoid so many issues. And could go into so many examples because it happens so much, but I think just keep that in mind, that there comes a point in your transaction where the smartest thing to do is just to begin to document everything, okay? Contract timelines is probably another one of the biggest ones. I've, you know, had agents, I mean, I can't tell you how many times agents have said things like, you know, Norma, I don't know what to do. Today's the last day of my option period. I'm trying to negotiate these repairs, and the agent doesn't answer the call, and it's 4:30 in the afternoon. And so my answer is, why on earth have you waited until this hour to try to renegotiate some of these repairs? Or worse, it's 5 days after the option period has expired, or the timeline for their financing approval, or whatever the case may be, and the agent is just now, you know, worried about some of these timelines. When you write up a contract, guys, and we'll talk about it a little bit further in the class, but you know, you have to have some way of tracking some of these deadlines. Put, you know, reminders on your phone or on your calendar or whatever system you have, but you have to have some sort of a system, right? I mean, just as human beings, we have like 50,000 thoughts in our head a day. How on earth are you going to keep track, especially if you have multiple contracts, of all of these timelines? And this is huge. You know, we might have the best intentions to help our client or whatever the case may be, but if you miss a timeline, you know, we cannot expect our clients to remember these things. Even though they signed a contract, you're representing them and you're supposed to help them facilitate this transaction. And it's up to us, right, to keep these timelines. And I mean, it's happened so many times where, you know, we're responsible for clients putting their earnest money in jeopardy, or losing their earnest money. So we have to be really, really mindful of contract timelines, all of them, right? Failure to deliver or review seller's disclosure notices. Again, and this happens a lot with our busier agents that have multiple transactions and maybe don't have assistants, and the seller's disclosure comes in. You forward that, you're on your iPhone or whatever, and you forward that to the client. You don't even review it. The client sees it, doesn't even know what it is. We get to closing and it's never even been signed, or worse, it's never even been reviewed, right? And that's happened to us, and we have some horror stories about that. So failure to order or review a survey is another one. It happened just last week where the buyer was at closing and they had not actually reviewed the survey, right? And we had to sort of scramble to fix things because there was a big problem on the survey. So again, these are all things that if you sort of just make a note or set up a task to review these things as they're happening, it's really part of our job. Agent-owned property, this is another one that we're seeing just more and more of. And I'm not just talking about disclosing whether you are a party to the transaction, right? Whether you're the buyer or the seller. But if you have not read our section on agent-owned property in the policies and procedures manual, I highly, highly recommend that you do before you do that, because there's a lot that you need to know about what our company policy is on agent-owned property. If it's your personal residence, there's no commission owed to the office, but it's different if it is an investment property for you, right? And so a lot of agents buy and sell property, and I won't get into that, but you just need to know what our office policy is on that. Improper contract drafting is another issue, and it's huge. Last week, I wrote up a farm and ranch contract for one of my longtime clients, and then I made a big error on it. I can't remember the last time I had written up a farm and ranch contract, but every contract is different, guys. And I really, I don't understand how agents write up contracts that they've never actually read. So, mine was a commission issue. I sort of doubled it up on 2 sections. The other agent on the other side was kind enough to say, Norma, I think this was a typo. And I went through and just filled it out really quickly. But again, improper contract drafting. If you're a newer agent, or if you're working on a type of contract that you just, have not worked with before, read it cover to cover. Try to fill it out as best that you can, and then bring it to Mac or myself, or Nina or somebody in your office that can review it for you, right? But after you have read it, don't bring it to me and say, Norma, what do I put in this section? Because I'm going to ask you if you've read the section, right? So improper contract drafting is another huge issue. Loss of earnest money, again, and I think that, this is something we can avoid if, we're really mindful of timelines. But another thing that I think that we fail to do sometimes with clients is to explain to them what earnest money is, and explain to them that there is a possibility that if they are in breach of the contract in any form, that they will lose that earnest money. And it's important for them to understand that. I had a client ask, or an agent ask, if, after their client had been in breach of the contract, the buyer, they wanted their earnest money and they wanted their option money back. And so that was an agent that really had not explained to the client what these 2 payments are for, right? Option money is absolutely not refundable, and earnest money may or may not be. It depends on the outcome of the contract, right? If it or who is in breach of it. So it's important that we explain to customers what the purpose of earnest money is, and that there's a possibility that they may not recover that. And so if you explain that from the beginning, when trouble, occurs down the road, we have a better chance of 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 neutralizing that should that happen. It's when we sort of overpromise, right? Or when it's our fault that they've lost the earnest money, right? Again, overpromising or providing inaccurate information, um, and lack of knowledge in a particular area. And this doesn't just apply to sort of geographical areas, but also in the type of real estate. The most common one I see is agents entering into commercial real estate. Um, I've had agents call me asking me questions about a property that they're going to help a client buy or list, um, and I'm trying to explain to them perhaps give them some advice or the next steps, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And so I highly encourage you guys, um, if there's an area in real estate that you have some interest in, don't wait until you've listed a property or you have a client, because then by then it's too late. I'm going to, if I see that that's the case with the transaction you're asking about, I'm going to ask you to refer it to another agent that can help you. Um, or again, if you have um, some interest in another area, there's a lot of designation courses that you can take. Um, the pre-licensing classes that Trek gives you and some of the continuing education classes that you guys attend, even after being in real estate a few years, don't prepare you for all of the areas of real estate that we have a license for. Um, they absolutely don't. And so again, that's something that's part of our policy and procedures, is that that agents don't enter into areas in which they have no knowledge. And that includes type of area, and it includes geographical area as well. If you don't have knowledge in a particular area and you are calling me, asking me, you know, if you can have information about a property in another MLS, I'm going to tell you to join that board, okay? Um, I don't know which section in the Code of Ethics, I don't know if it's Code 16 or which one it is, but that talks about competency in whatever area that you're working on. Not responding on time or at all. And I think a lot of times agents, um, don't, they have to deliver bad news, or, their client's upset, or, you have to sort of neutralize a situation or put out a fire, or something like that. And a lot of agents just avoid, right? And it is absolutely the worst thing that you can do, is not respond on time, and in some cases not respond at all. And we've had this happen. And I think if you poll the consumers, it's probably their biggest complaint with realtors. And it is the most unprofessional thing that you can do. Sometimes you have to bite the bullet for the next 5 minutes, pick up the phone, and deliver the bad news, or whatever the case may be. I think this falls back on sometimes agents biting off more than they can chew, right? They're not prepared for a transaction, or they're just really busy because they've got so much going on and they don't have time. And if that's the case, you need to slow down, because you absolutely have the responsibility to respond to everyone. A lot of times things can just be avoided if you answer a phone call and address it. Things tend to escalate and get worse when agents do this, right? When they don't respond, or they don't respond on time. Poor problem solving skills. Um, I think that the most successful agents in this business have this one skill that they've mastered, and it's problem solving skills. Um, and then there are agents that will take the smallest of problems and turn it into a mountain, because they take things personally. They don't know how to diffuse or neutralize a situation. They, end up adding fuel to the fire. They don't know how to talk to their clients. They don't know how to advise clients, how to explain things to clients. And they end up making things worse, right? I see it a lot, unfortunately. Agents just getting their feelings hurt when I don't think there's a lot of room for feelings in this business when you're trying to represent a client and you're trying to get a job done for them. Your opinion, your feelings should be on the back burner or nowhere to, there's no place for them, right? So, um, I think this, I used to tell my kids, like, there's a difference between responding and reacting, right? A response is a response to something where you're going to offer some kind of a solution or give some sort of an answer or feedback or whatever the case may be. A reaction is just your impulsive reaction that, you know, more often than not is probably going to add fuel to the fire, right? So poor problem solving skills. Poor or pointless marketing. I think when an agent is purposeful or mindful about what they're doing, they have a business plan, they have a marketing plan. I see, agents doing really, neat stuff on social media. And then I see examples of stuff that is just jaw dropping. Um, and I think that what happens is agents, they really don't have any type of a marketing plan. And so they, look at ads, they see what other people are doing, or they go on social media and they just try to emulate what everybody else is doing. And keep in mind that a lot of, agents out there have no sort of comprehensive marketing plan or business plan altogether. I would encourage you guys to, think outside the box a little bit, not do what everybody else is doing, and to have some sort of a plan as it applies to your marketing, right? Not just going with what everyone else is doing, not just following the crowd, but sort of just having your own, uh, thoughtful and marketing plan that sends some kind of a positive message, right? I see so much stuff out there and I just scratch my head wondering what was the purpose of that? What was the agent, like, what message is that agent trying to convey? They look absolutely ridiculous in that ad or whatever the case may be, right? So just poor, pointless marketing. Advertising other brokers' listings, and it goes, I think, just both ways. This, I think, was um, maybe a little bit more, um, I think it was just okay when we had the surplus of inventory, but in our climate right now with such limited inventory, I really would prefer that our agents advertise our own listings. And it is just my preference that I really would not like for other brokerages to be advertising our listings. We have such limited inventory. So keep that in mind. And the same, I would rather that we advertise our own listings on social media or, that's just my personal preference. I think inventory is so limited. I don't think we need to be giving permission to other brokerages to advertise our listings. Everything's available on, everything syndicates to Zillow and Realtor.com. We don't need to be giving a realtor that we have absolutely no control over, their professional standards or what, they put out there on social media. And then now we've given them our seller's listing to promote on their, what could be very tacky sites, right? And so just my opinion on that. And then just in general, just misleading consumers, right? So how to avoid these? And so I'm going to go into two documents that just very briefly going to review a few things on our policy and procedures manual. And then NAR puts out this document called Pathways to Professionalism. So I'm going to sort of briefly go over that to talk about some additional ways to avoid some of these issues. I'm gonna just throw out there three just personal sort of tips that I think are just really good practices And you guys have heard me say this, that the best way to resolve issues is to avoid them in the first place. And so, how do we do that? And I think one of the big things is just being prepared. Um, I have, so many agents that are veteran agents that just don't come to training anymore, or they feel that they've have enough experience that they don't need to be keeping up with everything. And we have such an advantage at our office that we have very high quality training thanks to Mac. We have you know and I hope that agents don't take that for granted, because other brokerages don't have this. They don't have any sort of comprehensive training. They just have the broker or somebody volunteering in the office, throwing out topics, and they package it and they call it training. But we have, something that a lot of brokerages don't have. And just tying back to the very first thing that I said in the beginning, what we're doing is so important. It carries so much weight that I don't understand how other brokerages don't take it as seriously as we do. And I'm sure you guys have all had transactions where you work with someone and you're just scratching your head thinking, how did this person get a real estate license, right? Because Trek doesn't, the requirements to get a real estate license are not very, they're not very difficult. And so take advantage of our company training. Not only that, but seek training outside of our own company training to advance your knowledge and to be better prepared in whatever area you're wanting to go in. We have a lot of agents in our Port Isabel office that have now gotten their broker's licenses. We had about 3 last year in Mission. And so these are all, I encourage you guys to do these things, to find designations that interest you and to just be better prepared, right? Um, Again, just touching on geographical competency, if you're going to try to work in an area outside of your, immediate MLS, joining that board, learning about that area, just trying to be as prepared as you can. Um, and then a big one is just don't bite off more than you can chew, right? Because then it'll be really difficult for you. I don't know if everybody, make sure everybody's muted. Sorry about that, guys. And the next thing is organization, right? Ask yourself if in every area of your real estate business, if you have a system for everything that you're doing. Do you have a written sort of listing process? What is your listing process? What is your organizational structure for when you take on a listing? Do you just wing it, or do you actually have sort of a checklist of things that you go through? Down to, I'm going to check in with my seller every Tuesday at this hour. Your contract checklist. What is your system of operating for, when you put something under contract, right? Do you have systems in place that help you stay organized? Every business, every restaurant, hotel, every business has organizational models. And it is a template that you follow that keeps you in check and that keeps the wheels of your business turning. So, what are yours? What are they, or do you even have any, right? Um, Another big thing is sort of time blocking or setting time aside to get the tasks done for that day that you need to, right? To respond to phone calls, to check in with your sellers, to check in with your pending contracts. With a lot of people working from home now, and COVID has just added to this problem of the very blurred lines between work and home. And if you're anything like me, I have to designate time when I'm going to be working, and I have to designate even a space because it's so hard for me to separate work and what I'm doing at home. So how are you doing that? How are you staying organized in that way? Do you have sort of a set number of hours that you dedicate for work every day? What does that look like? And then organization, just basic, coming down to just business plans. Do you have one? Are you working off of a plan? Are you working off of a yearly, 12-week, 4-week? How intentional are you about what you're doing? Organization is huge, guys, because our clients can tell when we are in the middle of a transaction or show up to a listing appointment how organized we are, right? And so much of what we do is just spoken through just the way that we show up with a client, right? And you can always tell an agent that's winging it or someone that's really, really organized, right? And so it's just really, really important. And then placing our client's interest above ours should always be the filter by which you do everything, right? So if you have some advice to give your clients, or you're going to try to, iron out a situation, always think of the intent behind everything that you're saying and doing. And are you placing your client's interests above yours, right? So these are just three areas: being prepared, being organized, and always having your client's interests above yours, I think are huge um, in trying to avoid a lot of these issues that we've talked about. I'm going to go through. I'm not going to go through every item on here, but when you get a chance, there's this document. It's called Pathways to Professionalism. Let me see how we're doing on time. It's called Pathways to Professionalism that NAR puts out. And it's not anything that they mandate. It's not like part of our code of ethics or anything like that. But it's a really neat, just short, brief summary of just really good practices, right, in real estate. Most important, and if you take anything away today, what is obviously the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? And this falls under, they've got three categories, and this falls under the respect for the public. Responding promptly, scheduling appointments as far in advance as possible. That goes back to organization. Call if you're delayed or if you have to cancel an appointment. That's just common courtesy. If someone decides not to view a property, explain why. Make that phone call to the listing agent. Explain why. Communicate with all parties in a timely fashion. We talked about that, about responding on time. Let's see. Informing occupants when you're leaving. Presenting a professional appearance at all times. If occupants are home, keep in mind this is their home. Ask them for permission to enter bedrooms. I would never use their bathroom or anything like that. Encourage clients. If you're at a showing, you're the listing agent, maybe you had to be present and the clients are asking you questions. Encourage them or bring their realtor into the conversation somehow. Don't be rude to them and say you need to talk to your agent, but just be mindful that this is somebody else's client, right? Be respectful of cultural differences, right? Be aware of all deadlines. We talked about that. Respect for property. Again, this is someone's home, right? And I would say one of the biggest things is, there's agents that have allowed clients to enter property without them being there. It happened last year on a couple of occasions that I'm aware of here. And that is absolutely, unacceptable. Or, when let's say you get you're following up on a lead and, maybe it's a very expensive house and you go straight to the house without asking the buyer any questions, right? And so now you're showing someone's home and you're entering into their private home, their private property with complete strangers, and you haven't done your due diligence to ask who these people are, or you haven't asked, the questions. I'll never forget, it was a Sunday afternoon, I was with my kids, and I got a call to show a property I had listed. And I dropped what I was doing and went because it was only like a couple streets down from my house. I knew it wasn't going to take me very long. But when I get there, these people are just curious Sunday, they've got nothing else to do. And they were in a budget that wasn't even like a fraction of what this house was worth, like not even a fourth. Once I asked the right questions, I got so angry. I was so upset, but I was just angry at myself for being so, you know, so stupid to drop what I was doing. And imagine that seller, here are people in your house that have no business being in your house, right? So respect for property. This is someone's home. Leaving the house just as you left it. I'm sorry, leaving the house as you found it. Turning off lights, AC, making sure doors are locked. And again, just overall being considerate of property that we're showing. And respect for our peers. Again, responding to agents promptly. I would say if you've got a question about a property, check MLS, check any files that might be on there. Do your due diligence before you're calling other realtors, right? To ask them a question that they're going to turn around and tell you, did you read the MLS, information, right? Um, we like to do what's quick and easy, and it's easier to sometimes call the agent before doing our own due diligence, right? Um, Notifying listing broker if you see some inaccurate information on MLS before, maybe reporting them. Again, just being courteous and respectful. Um, Again, this is a really great document for you guys all. See if we can put it in a link to it in our various groups. But again, just being responsible, being careful to return keys. Years ago when I first started, I had 18 years ago, we were still picking up keys at offices. And I had an agent that for about 2 weeks didn't bring my key back. And so I kept calling and calling and calling him because I only had one set of keys. And he finally comes back into the office and basically throws the keys at our receptionists. And because I'd called him so much and I'd bothered him so much. So, that was my introduction to how a lot of realtors behave in this business, right? So again, just respect for our peers. If you guys haven't already done so, I highly encourage you guys to read or go through or skim or at least go through the table of contents of our policy and procedures manual and read any read any sections in there that might be important to you or might apply to anything that you're doing. We updated it in June of this year, and I probably had about a dozen calls on it and from agents, and I really appreciate that because it tells me that agents are actually reading it and have interest in what our company policies are. And so, I'd love to see that. There's probably an answer there for most of the questions that agents have. Um, and so again, I think our table of contents, I'm not going to go through the document because this is not a policy and procedures training. I am going to touch on just a couple of things, just a few things that I think are important to highlight as they apply to professional standards. But you guys all should have a copy of it. It was required that you guys signed the acknowledgement page of it, which is the last page of this document, which says that you've read it and acknowledge it. If you haven't done so, get with your office manager, please, and make sure that you sign that. But just a couple of things that I want to talk about. And number one is conflict resolution, right? So there's a section on there, section 713 of our policy and procedures manual that talks about conflict resolution. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just touch on a couple things. So again, although conflict is unavoidable, it's a part of our business, and our goal as professionals is to always find effective methods to neutralize sensitive situations and provide reasonable solutions, right? So when a consumer complaint is addressed in a professional, timely, and courteous manner, the negative impact of it will be greatly minimized. And that goes through a list of things that are good practices, right? And we've already touched on a lot of these things. I want to specifically just emphasize F. Do not engage in any negative conversation or argument. And remember that we're held to a higher standard than the consumer, and professionalism is never more important than in these circumstances. And we should listen to their, move this around because I can't see the screen. We should listen to their concerns, determine what they need, acknowledge, whatever their point of view is, relate to them, and then assure them that we're going to do whatever we can to try to find a solution. And this goes back to what I touched on about responding rather than reacting, right? Because it's just a very natural human thing to just want to react immediately, right? As opposed to taking a moment, calming yourself down, figuring out what the best course of action might be, and then offering, a solution. So conflict resolution is huge. It's the most difficult thing I have to do is when I'm told by an office manager or an agent, you have to call this really angry client. And 9 times out of 10, the agent probably added some fuel to the fire, or it's something that had the agent addressed it more professionally from the onset, it's something that probably could have been entirely avoided. Because it's usually small things that, that end up being, they just turn into big things. Again, going back to, I can share examples of, just really high productive agents that have really difficult situations and they know how to neutralize them very, very quickly because they have excellent communication skills. They have excellent conflict resolution and problem solving skills, right? If this is something you struggle with, there's books on the subject, good problem solving skills and having just good conflict resolution abilities, right? Social media, there's a long section um, in our policy procedures manual about our social media policy. And it's really long. I'm not going to go through it, but I'll just read this first paragraph. Using social media for marketing purposes on personal sites. So once an agent uses their personal social media site for real estate related purposes, they become an extension and a reflection of our company. So if an agent elects not to adhere to our social media policy, they are required to remove any and all mention of their affiliation with our brokerage from these sites. And they may not use these sites to market property, solicit clients, or even list themselves as agents in our office. And it is recommended that agents use professional pages and sites to promote their business if this is the case. So there's a long list on here of what to do when posting on different sites. And, again, just to reiterate what that paragraph says, so when you're affiliated with any company, but our company in particular, keep in mind that everything that you're doing is also a reflection of our company. And so going back to what our core values are, and the reason for this class altogether is high professional standards, keep in mind that if you're using your site and you promote yourself as a realtor, or you make mention of our company, Remax Elite, in any of your social media content, keep in mind that for the consumer, they might not make that separation. It obviously makes sense that you're this individual and that's the company and you just work for them, but to some degree, you are a reflection of our company. And so keep in mind and be mindful and thoughtful about what you're putting on social media. And be mindful of what message, whatever content you're putting on there, be mindful of what that message is communicating or what that is saying. And that goes back a little bit to sort of thoughtless and poor marketing. I'll give you guys an example. A couple days ago, I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see a veteran agent in there. She's been in the business at least 12 years or more, a middle-aged woman, and she's in a TikTok video. And I'm just looking at it and I'm just like sort of dumbfounded. I don't understand what the purpose of it. She was cute and sexy in it. And then at the end, and it was related to real estate. So at the end, I watched it. I shared it with my daughter. I sent it to her. And, I just questioned what was the purpose behind it. was the purpose of it to be cute and sexy? Well, sure, she was cute and sexy, but keep in mind that when she did not work for our company. Just to, and to be clear, I do not see our agents doing these things. This is one of the things that I just hope to avoid. But to be clear, I don't understand. I did not understand what the purpose of it was. As it applied to real estate, right? Our core values. You can go back and read them again. Professionalism. Commitment to mastery. Nowhere in our core values does it say that we're trying to make sure that you're cute and sexy in your marketing, right? So keep in mind that anything that you do is also a reflection of our company. And you have to ask yourself, does that sort of align with the values of our company? Is that something that is going to serve me, or is it something that's going to hurt me? What message is that sending to the consumers? What message am I trying to convey? And I'm not suggesting, obviously your social media sites, your personal ones are personal, and I'm not at all suggesting, that you shouldn't post anything that's fun or um, that shows off your personality, or this is how we interact now socially, and there's nothing wrong with it. But when you tie our company to it, just be mindful that there is now that you're in a way now also reflecting the values of our company, right? And they might not align with that particular content that you're posting, right? So be really careful about sort of political or religious content that you might be putting on there. And if you want to do that, again, I'm not suggesting that you don't. I would never, overstep, anything that is outside of, what you do on your personal sites is your business. But if you do prefer to post that type of content, then it is part of our office policy that you don't list your affiliation with our company on your social media sites, and that is for the protection of everyone. We're now over 150 agents, and we don't all share the same views, and we have to be respectful of that, right? Um, let's see. Again, I'm not going to go through it, but it's a long section in our policy and procedures manual. I encourage you guys to all look at it. There's some requirements on there. Obviously, you have to list the consumer protection notice, information about brokerage services, and it goes on and on. So I highly, encourage you guys to read it. And then another one that got us into an ethics complaint that we're still in it currently is Section N. An agent shall not engage in negative commentary on other posts. So sometimes it's tempting to do that, but I would just advise against it, engaging in any type of negative commentary in other people's posts. Dress code, I won't get into that very specifically. I'll just have you guys again refer to it. It's just basically, impressions. The impression that a consumer gets is really, really important. They say that 2/3 of the messages that we convey to people are nonverbal, and people form sort of their own opinion, or and they receive an impression of us at first meeting, right? Their first impression, and it can be either positive or negative, right? And so just do yourselves a favor, and so that we don't have to work so hard to gain their trust, is if they from the onset have a positive impression of you, because what you convey with your appearance is that what you're talking about, that you're prepared for every situation, then they're more likely to trust what's going to come out of your mouth, right? What you're going to say. And I got a lot of calls on this. after we sent out the new policy and procedures manual. And again, it doesn't, it just lists things. It's intended to just be a guide of things that are appropriate or inappropriate in most jobs, not just in real estate. But again, just tying back to the first thing that we spoke about, how important this is, um, and how important our job is, right? And we want to inspire trust in our agents. I'm sorry, in our clients. We want to, ensure that they, from the first meeting at a property or whatever the case may be, that that they are just communicated, non-verbally, this message of, this person is prepared and they're professional, and they probably know what they're talking about, right? So again, what message are we conveying, right? Everything we do, everything we say conveys a message, and so dress code is just one of those things. Just be mindful of it. Production standards and full-time agents. Agents, to work at our company, you have to be a full-time associate. You have to have a minimum of 1.2 million in sales volume in a 12-month period. Invest in and develop marketing materials, right? We're again, tying back to that very first statement, right? Would you want a part-time doctor to work on you when you need surgery, or a part-time attorney to represent you? And although consumers might not tell us that, I don't think that they really want a part-time agent to help them with the most expensive thing that they're ever going to buy or sell. I've had agents tell me that I, run into, that say, oh, I was going to interview at your office, but I didn't because I know you don't take part-time agents. And I'm actually really proud of that, because I think that even consumers know that we're not part-time agents, right? And so if you're newer to this business, keep in mind that this is expected, right? That you do this full time, and there are some minimum standards that you have to meet. And again, this is a section I invite you to read. Again, be very organized, have client management tools, and so on and so forth, right? Those are just a few areas that that I wanted to touch on. I'll get with Mac after class and make sure that we link the Pathways to Professionalism and our Policy and Procedures Manual in our various groups. But just in summary, guys, I just want everybody, if there's just one message that I think that my goal was to convey with this class, is that everything that we do matters. From the moment that we take a phone call and have that very first conversation with the client, everything we do matters. That first phone call will set the tone, if you're professional or not, for the rest of your interaction with that client, right? And then let's say that they have a really positive impression from you. Then you show up to their showing appointment, and you're well prepared and you're organized. And so it just, by the time you get to, let's say, a really difficult negotiation, you have someone that's trusting what you're saying, as opposed to feeling like you and your client are at odds, and your client is just not listening to you, or it feels like you're just on opposite sides, right? So high professional standards will always serve you. They'll never hurt you. Again, it's not about one thing or another. It's just everything as a whole. Everything matters. Like I said earlier, 2/3 of everything of the message that someone receives, 2/3 of what we communicate to people is through nonverbal communication. And again, that's not just the way you look, but it's everything. It's how prepared you are. It's how courteous you were. It's how professional you were. It's how calm. Everything matters, and everything will impact that transaction, right? And again, high professional standards will always help you, will never ever hurt you. And again, none of this is meant to offend anyone. If something was discussed that you feel, I think I've been doing that, just take it as this is something that you can improve on. And again, it is for your own benefit, right? You might think, well, we do so much via Zoom and virtually, it doesn't really matter how I dress. Believe it or not, a client that you meet that that you're going to help again with such an important purchase, they're probably going to look you up on social media. And what does that say about you, right? Everything matters, guys. Sometimes we try so hard to verbally convey a message that our actions, um, just, spoke the opposite, right? And people are convinced by what they see a lot more than by what they hear. So keep that in mind. Um, Again, everything we do matters, and high professional standards will always, always serve you and help you. It'll never hurt you, ever. So that is my class, guys, and just open it up to any questions that anybody might have. Nobody?
Just a comment. Great participation today. Check it out. 100 people.
I know.
You know how to draw a crowd, NH.
Woohoo! I appreciate that, guys. That's awesome. I appreciate that. Any comments?
Just that it was a great class, Norma. I barely have had any classes with you, so good one.
Thank you. I hope it was
Thank you,
helpful.
Norma, for providing a great place to work. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, thank you, guys. I hope it
And
was
that
helpful.
the bell keeping you on track was excellent. I thought that was great.
Yes, I was just looking at I kept looking at I was trying to do an hour, so I think I did pretty good considering
You
we
did
started a little
great.
bit
I
late.
thought it was very well done. Enjoyed
Good,
it.
good.
Norma, I have a comment or question. It's Veronica from
Hi,
CC.
Veronica.
Hey, so just how or what's our office policy on how we handle when other agents from other brokerages are unethical or they do something that we know is not right? What is our, process for that?
I think it just depends on the particular situation, right? I mean, if you're in the middle of a transaction and you're a few days from closing and they just went back on something they had promised or whatever the case may be. um I had a seller say a few weeks ago, well, I don't care, I'm changing the price whether you like it or not, and the realtor had an attitude of, well, that's what my client wants to do. I mean, it was just horrible. So at that point, you just have to talk to your client, try to neutralize things and say, these are the options that we have. We can do this, we can sue that, these are the options. Take a day, think about it, let me know what you think. So it really just depends. Or you could have situations like there was another case where the agent very, very obviously and plainly and just um, basically intruded and took charge and basically was attempting to steal a client. And so it really just depends. There are situations where I'm going to say, you know what, this is unacceptable. I want to, maybe file a cease and desist or report them or file a grievance. It just depends. And then other cases, I think I would just advise, what is the best thing for your client here? They don't want to go through a legal process. I'm just going to encourage this client and just tell them that, unfortunately, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. The end goal is to get them the house. We might just have to bite the bullet and so it just depends, Veronica. Like, I think, when a situation like that comes up, I'll ask you, and you can call me after the class if you want to discuss it, um, just more in detail, but it really just depends. And really just go back to asking the question, like, really, what is the best outcome for our client? Like, what's the best thing we could do for our client? Is that to advise them just move forward and or let's hire an attorney, or it just depends, right? So it just depends on the particular. That's a hard one. There's not like an office policy on,
Yeah, okay,
it could be so many, it could be so many things. Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Great class,
Let's see.
Norma. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank you
Norma.
guys all for
Russ,
absolutely.
if I could just jump in, just as since we have everybody here, pretty much. The as a reminder, we have a contracts class on Friday, the 3rd at 9 o'clock, and we have another one on the 7th at 1 o'clock to review the contracts. And once again, for those that came in a little later, tomorrow morning starts the new contracts. Just so everybody knows that they're, if you have something that goes on contract today and you're negotiating it, but you don't settle it till tomorrow it has to be on that new contract. I posted that video in the Facebook groups yesterday, so you guys take a look at it. That came from Texas Realtors, one of the attorneys up there. And this was an emergency type deal, so that actual contract is going to be available, but it's not a promulgated contract. If you look at the date on the top, it's on top right, it's not, they're going to go back and vote on it and do all that stuff they have to do, but they had to put it out because of the legislature and some of the changes that were made on the legal side.
I have a question, Mac. Is it in zip forms? The new contract will be in zip forms?
It will be tomorrow morning. I checked
Okay,
this morning.
that's what I wanted.
There, it's on Trex website, but it says you can't use it until tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Mac, that doesn't affect commercial contracts, just residential?
It's everything, commercial, everything.
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Appreciate that. Thanks. Would you have anything else for us?
I don't think so. I'm trying to save the chat here so I can get everybody's if I missed anything.
And I already uploaded the Pathways to Professionalism into both Facebook groups already.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mac. And thank you guys. Any questions or comments? I'm surprised with like 100 people on there that nobody has any questions.
I mean, it was very straightforward and a lot of good information to take in. So I have no questions, just really processing everything.
Well, very, very good. If you guys haven't already signed that acknowledgement page in the policy and procedures manual, again, just get with your office manager, and I think we pretty much have most everybody has turned it in. So, well, very good. It's nice to see everyone. If you guys have any specific questions afterwards about anything that we discussed, or any concerns about anything or anything like that, give me or Mac a call. I appreciate you guys being here. I know we said we'd have several classes, and I thought we maybe would have about half attendance. So I'm really impressed that you guys all try to get it all knocked out. Everybody's being so compliant. I love it.
Mac, what is that new, I'm sorry, what is the new contract called? What is it? What's the name of it? I'm looking for it because I've got one that's not going to sign till tomorrow, and we've been working on it for 4 months.
It won't be available till tomorrow.
Okay, but it's called what? It's just in the new contract?
Right. So let's say, for example, a 1 to 4 family contract, or the commercial or condo, whatever it is, the actual contract has changed, and we have to use it starting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But we don't have access to it to use it until tomorrow.
Okay, but you have one up on the website we can look at.
There's one on Trex website, and there's one on Texas Realtors website with a red line. All they changed in that basically was the public improvement district. And there's a new addendum that goes with that. That is a required addendum. If whatever the seller is selling is in a public improvement district, that is required. That's where I posted that video. There's a whole lot that goes to it, but it's not anything different than what we've done with the MUD.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that we have it available.
Okay.
Anybody else? So for those of you that are still here, then there's one other little thing, and that is, remember that your NAR Code of Ethics, if you have not done that, that expires. This is not for new agents. This is for seasoned agents. If you have not done that, it expires December the 31st. That has nothing to do with Remax Elite, Remax, Texas Realtors, your board, nothing. That is NAR. You can go to nar.realtor, click on education, and it has ethics there. You can take it. It's a free course. Or you can do the C2EX that was mentioned in the chat. That also counts for that. But you have to have that every 3 years. We used to be able to take ethics, legal and ethics, and our ethics is counted. Today, we don't have that. So we have to take NAR's ethics class every 3 years.
Mac, one question. How can you make sure that, let's say you take the class and it is in your education, you know, when
It's
in
not going
that
to
part?
show up on you. It's not going to show up on your education. But since you ask, let me just show you so that you guys, for those of you that are concerned about that, let me just show you where it's at real quick. Once again, if you go to nar.realtor and you click on, you have to be logged in, click on education, go to Code of Ethics training, and when you go to the Code of Ethics training, it'll actually, there's a little button here for you to click on to check and see if you have met the requirements. It's loading slowly. There it is. Check Code of Ethics status. When you click on that, if you've met it, it'll tell you that. But you do have to be logged in for it. So I see. So it says mine's good until, for this session, mine is good. Starting January, I'll have 3 years to redo it again. And if you need to take it, at the bottom of that page is where everything is at. So again, if you just go to education, click on Code of Ethics, there it is right there, because I'm signed in this time. You can see it right there. And then at the bottom, you have Code of Ethics course for existing members. It's free. If you want CE credit for it, you can do this one. And that is, I checked that, it's valid for Texas. You'll get 3 hours of ethics training if you want that. But you can do the free one here if you want to, or you can do the C2X, which is what I'd highly recommend. It's just going to take you more time, but you have until December. If you have not taken this, it's required, right? If it's required for you and you have not taken it, January the 1st, you will no longer be a realtor. And there's nothing we can do about that. It'll have to be fixed through the system. Because NAR will drop you immediately at midnight. There's no grace period on it or anything. All right, anybody have anything else there?
Norma, did you have a question about contracts? Turkington.
I think I was just going to ask Mac. I think Candy already asked him if it was just 1 to 4 or all of them.
Yeah, it's all of them. It's every
all of them.
contract.
Yeah, because since we do mostly condos. Okay.
So if I can real quick, I'll just show you guys that one as well. Because I was on here early this morning checking these, make sure they were available or not available. But if you go to Trek's website, for example, and you go to contracts, if you look at it, it looks like it's not there, right? Everybody can see Trek's website. So if you look at it, it's not there. And every one of the contracts are in here. So let's say condominiums. If I click on condos, here's the one you're currently using. Here's the new one. But it says you do not use this version prior to September the 1st. Don't use it prior to September the 1st. But as of September the 1st, you have to have it. So it is there. It just doesn't have it out there because what they don't want us to do is start using it before we're supposed to. And this is coming from the legislative folks. They put the requirement on Trek to do this. And if you look at the form on here, this is what I was getting at. If you can see the date, normally the date on the upper right-hand corner is when it's promulgated. But this is an emergency promulgation. It's not actually, they put it out in an emergency case, right? Which tells you that there's legal issues with public improvement districts. I mean, why else would the legislature have that? Why would Trek react to it? They're going to vote on this form in November, and that's when it will actually become a promulgated form. But it is kind of sort of starting tomorrow morning. And if you want to see the red line version for it, you can just go to Texas Real Estate, texasrealestate.com. And once again, the same thing we normally do, make sure you're logged in. Go to legal and ethics, go to blank form downloads, or I'm sorry, go to forms, just go to forms. And down on the bottom, it has review, proposed and recent adopted changes. And these are actually all the contract changes that have been done. Contracts and addendums, because there's one for residential service contracts as well. These are all the changes that take place for tomorrow morning. So every contract.
Mac, real quick, can you put that link in the chat? Just right
Well,
where you're at.
I can, but you have to be logged in to see it. So you're not.
Yeah, but that's okay. Just in case, I mean, maybe it'll help.
But I'll put it in the chat, but to be able to, that way you can follow it, you're going to have to be logged in to actually see it. So it's in the chat. The new addendum for it is right here where it says draft. And any of these, if you open them up, they're actually the red line version is what they have. They have the red line version. So it says draft on it, and you can see where they made the changes to it, which is right here. And what they did was they took out, the red is what they took out, the blue is what they put in. So that's the change. And tomorrow morning, these will be on zip forms. Karen, yes.
Does the contract class work can take from you count as the contract class we need for TAR? Do we
Not
get
this
credit
one.
for it? I'm
Not
sorry?
this one.
No.
Not the one we have, not the two we have coming up, no.
Okay.
We've done one like that, and we'll probably do another one here before the end of the year, but right now, those two are, Norma had said that she wanted a contracts course for everybody, and that's what, this will be session 5 and 6 of it. So try to hit all the bases. All right. Anybody have any questions? Anything else there?
Brenda has a question. Brenda has a question.
Gustavo. All right.
Brenda has a question.
I don't.
I got to tell you, you guys look really happy. I have to tell you. All right. Anybody have anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate everybody's
Thank
participation.
you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Norma.
Mac. Thank you, Norma.
Have a great rest of the
Thank
week.
you,
Tell me if you guys have any questions specifically. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Summer party.
Oh,